right, welcome everyone. We'll be starting in a few moments. All right, well, thanks for joining. This has been one incredible week, to say the least. Um, I thought I'd say the why, the now what, and the how this ends. The three things that I think are the most significant and that are on my mind. So Liberation Day. Liberation Day ultimately is a spike of U.S. tariffs at around mean now at around 22%, historic high. It hasn't been this high for quite some time, so this is an obvious game changer. Why? I think that outside the world, number one, we may be overestimating to a large extent the degree to which this is about the rest of the world. America remains, to a large extent, incredibly self centered. And when President Trump launches all of these tariffs, believe it or not, his audience is mainly domestic. Mainly domestic, that means that basically this is a way to be attractive to his political base, to the MAGA base. This speech he gave is basically really, really intended to please the MAGA base. And honestly, on that why, I would tell you the first and biggest reason is to basically rally his troops. Now, of course, this has economic consequences. We all know the fact that when financial markets crash in the United States, it has a big effect as well on the relatively poorer or less well off populations who depend on stock markets to pay for college for their kids and to save for retirement. But the fact of the matter is, the way you perceive the economy today in the United States highly depend on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. So I think this is what he's betting on: the political motivation, again, in a nutshell, to motivate his base. Why? Number two, internationally speaking, this is straight out of The Art of the Deal. This is straight out of the Trump rulebook. Namely, to try to have enough charisma and sense of showmanship, pardon my French, but to scare the hell out of everyone in a way that will force negotiations on a turf that you think may be more favorable for you for Donald Trump. So he said this openly, that his sons have said this openly, that as a result of these tariffs, people will basically come rushing back to the US to try to negotiate. So, again, I mean, I've written about this in the past. We've discussed this in the past. This is straight from the Mad Men theory idea of if you look unpredictable enough, then you may look worrying enough for people to start paying attention and to play your game on your turf rather than some multilateral neutral turf. So that's the second why. It's straight out of the Trump rulebook to try to terrify all trading partners, regardless of whether you're a historical ally or an enemy. Everyone's the same now. There's no memory. There's no cultural reality or cultural similarities in this. That doesn't really matter anymore. So the why. Politically, we said to mobilize the base. Internationally, we said to basically use this as a negotiation tool. And I think there is a third part that no one really believes in the economic world, but that his chief economist actually is defending right now, is this notion of the ultimate long term goal of Donald Trump is to rebalance industrial production across the world. And he sees these tariffs as a way to relocate some of the production into the US, maybe we can all expect incredibly aggressive fiscal policies, a little bit like the Inflation Reduction Act, to even accelerate this movement. But I think this is basically the economic rationale of trying to lower the dollar to the extent, even maybe of stopping the dollar from being the international currency, trying to encourage companies to come produce in the United States and thus encourage a wave of reindustrialization. Um, will he succeed? Many of you are asking me this. The fact of the matter is, I don't believe he will, because the process is going to be painful. Because there is evidence, TSMC is one, that even foreign companies coming into the US have an incredibly hard time doing well because of talent shortages, because of different cultures. So it's going to be an incredibly hard endeavor. Time will tell ultimately, but even if he succeeds, there's going to be a very painful adjustment in the process. So that's for the why. Politically, to rally the base; internationally, to get some leverage in international negotiations; economically, arguably, to reindustrialize and rebalance industrial production. And I told you how I felt about this. All right, now what? Okay, so we're seeing the European Union, we're seeing China be incredibly firm. And I think that's only fair game. Be incredibly firm because, whether you like it or not, this wave of protectionism from the United States is about to hit the shores of Europe. It's about to hit the shores of China. And it doesn't seem to me that neither China nor Europe can do anything about it. But it doesn't mean that all of this foolishness is going to be, the eternal a reality of this world. The European Union and China are striking back and they're fighting back. I've written about this in the newsletter you received it at noon, but I do want to repeat this, perhaps in a different way. I find it striking that at the very moment that the United States, who was the main protector of the stability of the international system, both the international political system and the international economic system, is now starting to depart from this role and becoming the generator of uncertainty, the generator in chief of uncertainty, right? This is at the very moment that I think Europeans should start to do what they know how to do best, namely be as boring as possible, as predictable as possible. We don't necessarily have the best track record in the world, though. Policies change, regulations change, and we know from a business standpoint, this hurts visibility of businesses. Now may be a time to become, in regulations, policy making, incredibly predictable, incredibly visible. I've heard a lot of business leaders say this. It's less the tariffs per se that are incredibly painful, it's actually all of the uncertainty that it generates. If a company today understands the European business environment or the Chinese business environment for that matter, and is confident to be able to make choices and investment decisions, knowing that over the next 5 years, he or she can expect some visibility, that is going to be a decisive asset for the European Union and for the China to basically beat this wave out. That's a competitive advantage. We know, nations competed against each other in the past. What is interesting is that now they might compete on the quality of their business environment, and we're seeing this unravel. Um, there's also something striking that needs to be brought up is while the adults in the room seem to be Chinese and European right now, yes, China is an autocracy. Yes, to choose between China and the United States, I know many people in the European Union who would be incredibly uneasy with that choice. But there may be a conversation, deeper, longer run, about what rationality actually means. Respect for science, respect for international stability, respect for the international system, respect for multilateralism. This is something that Trump despises at so many levels. If we give up, the rest of the world is going to give up. So this might be time to redefine what rationality means. It seemed like a longer term project, more abstract project, and yet it is a perfect time to have that conversation, I would claim. How does this end? My third point. Um, I don't know. I am thinking that this president, this US president, is a president that has defied the laws of political gravity so many times that don't call him dead before, because I have been tempted myself to believe that, now's the last time. Well, no, he always bounces back. He has, like him or not, this political acumen somehow that leads him to constant reinvention. Now, the other side of the coin is there's a rule that is as simple and as old as the United States itself, namely, the state of the economy is basically the ultimate judge of whatever happens. So, as we discussed before, markets tumbling down, is that going to be the ultimate guardian? Is that going to be the ultimate referee of this whole situation that will lead Trump to pull back? Or that will make Republicans so uneasy that they will decide that time is for greater pressure? Or that will make, excuse me, the business community that has basically joined Trump over the past 9 months or so decide to take a step back? I'm really, really not entirely sure. This being said, I've said this a couple of times. Let me repeat it tonight. JP Morgan had some incredibly tough and incredibly convincing words about this. Namely, that financial markets are not things that you can deport, they're not things that you can bully. And ultimately, when financial markets get nervous, as they are, and they've been for a little while, it may be time for people to pay attention. I saw someone on Twitter. Now, I don't remember who exactly, so I can't even give it credit to that person, but suggesting, Donald Trump is the new Liz Truss, reminding us of that very short-lived stint of Liz Truss as at 10 Downing Street in the UK. There's something interesting in that story about economics basically reminding politics of their existence, reminding politics that there are things that are not viable and thus that needs to change. So, is this an economic form of impeachment ultimately? That might be the least implausible scenario at this point, or the least disruptive, the most disruptive, and the least unlikely scenario at this point. But please, oh please, remember this is a guy, Donald Trump, who defies political gravity. Do not prematurely announce his political death, because this is likely going to make lead to analytical mistakes. He always bounces back ultimately. Dear friends, this is basically the three things I could think of in the wake of these crazy few days. I'll be brutally honest with you guys. I don't even know how this works exactly. If I'm guessing you guys can write messages, I hope I can see those messages. But if there are any comments, any thoughts, anything that you want to raise, any questions, by all means, please do. And it's so, so nice to have you. I wish I could see you. Anyway, it's the new Substack tool, ladies and gentlemen. I am learning as I'm doing, to be brutally honest. Any thoughts? Give it a few moments. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to address them. I'm also available for my subscribers via email always. I do see my message. Mark says, I've heard opinions that Trump is looking for making deals through this massive tariffs attack. What kind of deals with the EU or China would he be looking for? I think that's a great question, Mark. So how could this happen? Um, I'm wondering whether it is not as simple as this, namely the Europeans and the Chinese trying to come back and basically saying, I'll impose even greater tariffs for X, Y, and Z. Trump saying, no, let's not do that. And instead, let's go back to the negotiation table. And instead of a tariff X, I'll give you Y. This may be ultimately a situation that everyone agrees on. Maybe it looks strangely like the status quo prior to last Wednesday. And then what happens is, okay, the Europeans said, okay, so it was all for conversation. And Trump, on the other hand, goes back to Fox or to CNN saying, look at what I did, and I got a brand new deal with the Europeans. And that goes straight to the political argument of saying, he is just doing this for show, especially for his domestic audience. What I do know as well is that the Europeans would be foolish and are openly talking about hitting, American services. So there is a very positive balance of European goods excuse me, I'm not being clear. The Europeans have a trade surplus with the United States when it comes to goods, but has a significant deficit when it comes to services. The US exports far more services in Europe than the other way around. Uh, Targeting tech giants on the part of the European Union could really, really be a very, very painful outcome. And this would basically help, I think, the Europeans with leverage. And again, I'm not entirely sure what Trump does in that case, except what I described earlier. So, yeah, ultimately, and it's exactly what you wrote, Trump is looking to make deals, or even more precisely, looking for the possibility to claim that he made deals. That's my best guess so far, Mark. I hope I've addressed your point. Let me know. Dear Gerard says, what stance would you recommend you adopt? Waiting for the economic wall of reality to further collapse, or no, no, no? No, no, by God, please do not wait. Please, 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 oh, please do not wait. It's time to act. Retaliate tit for tat, or at least threaten to retaliate tit for that. Yes, I think that would be helpful, at the very least, as a negotiation tool to threaten, not to actually apply it. And I think that if you do target American tech giants, that's the moment where you might be able to get the attention of Americans. So that's the short run. Try to retaliate or try to threaten to retaliate in a way that is likely to be painful and that will get Americans to start listening. Longer run, though, I think that you likely need a longer term plan, and this may come to the advantage of the EU when the US seems so short sighted. And I think of two things. The first thing is really, really invest in the visibility of your of your policy making. And again, businesses feel even more threatened by the uncertainty right now, global uncertainty, than by the weight of tariffs. So I'm thinking the more visible you are, the more policy visibility, the more policy certainty you generate, that is going to be a striking advantage of the European business environment compared to the US's. And that means in that fight for investments, it's not entirely clear to me that the US wins. But there's a third answer to Gerard, which is the following, and which is saying, look, the EU and its DNA, the fundamental aspect is multilateral trade. That means what? It means a common set of standards, a common set of rules that in yesterday's world, the World Trade Organization was supposed to guarantee. The World Trade Organization is dead. It's probably not coming back under its current form. But inside the World Trade Organization, there was a mechanism to try to solve disputes. This was what the World Trade Organization was really good at doing, and that's what ensured multilateralism. Guess what? When in the trade relationships that the EU is trying to negotiate with Mercosur today, the very same device between countries exists right now in that negotiation plan between the European Union and Mercosur. My point ultimately is that the Europeans can reimpose multilateralism when it trades with Mercosur, when it trades maybe tomorrow with Africa. Think about how great that would be to engage in with Africa on a terrain that is far more pragmatic than the very, very historically diabolical relationships we have with countries like Algeria, among many others. If we're able to impose in a wide range of trade agreements we sign multilateralism, we rebuild the multilateral system, perhaps even without the United States. Longer run, I'm thinking if the European Union wants to be the adult in the room, that's what it does. Try to negotiate block per block with some new trade agreements and try to reinstore those standards and norms and tell people you want to access these markets, you have to abide by that multilateral approach that we've imposed. Dear Gerard, I hope I'm making sense. Fadi, nice to hear from you. Rebalancing industrial production needs to devalue the dollar. Yes, that means also impoverishing. Yes. How could this be accepted? Fadi, am I allowed to call a friend and ask? I don't know how this would be accepted. Um, I mean, my best guess is they haven't gone to that stage just yet. The stage there are is a lower dollar will basically help exports grow. That's where they've stopped. I think they're nowhere near getting to that. I'm guessing, a weaker dollar, yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's going to hurt maybe the wealthier Americans, but I'm not even sure that really matters. Even when you think about tariffs, they're incredibly regressive, meaning they hurt significantly poorer populations before everyone. Fadi, you're making a great point, and I'm trying to look for very different ways of saying, "Hey, man, you're making a great point. I just don't know how to." You're right. You're right. It makes no sense. I'm sorry. I don't have a better answer, unfortunately. All right. Well, everyone, thank you. Thank you, Fadi. Thanks for joining. It was an experiment for me to do this live and to do it under this format. So by all means, let's get this conversation continuing. And it's really, really nice to see all of you. Anyway, let's remain open minded as we always are, but optimistic. That's the word I was looking for. I almost lost that one. Optimistic in this turbulent world. All right, guys. It was nice to see you. Keep in touch and let's speak soon. Thank you, guys.